We were going to the swap meet. There was it was in San Pedro, and there was these tunnels right next. I like found out about them when I was like 15. Like me and my brother went exploring during our break, and we found these tunnels, and we were like, "Oh fuck, there's these graffiti tunnels out in San Pedro." And so every like Saturday night, I would get the backpack, fill it up with the spray paint, and exactly graft the sweater so it doesn't make noise or whatever. Yeah. And so I put it inside the truck so they wouldn't see me put it in the morning. So hide it with all our junk that we would sell, and just like fucking pray that they didn't hear the noise of like the rattle of the spray paint. Yeah. But yeah, so similar stories. But yeah, I went far and beyond just to like be able to sneak away to paint graffiti and like, you know, lie to things, you know, be like, oh, it's my friend's birthday, we're gonna paint in this backyard. It's my friend's birthday, we're gonna go paint in their backyard, or we're gonna go paint this. And at some point it's like, dude, it's your friend's birthday every week, dude. Yeah. Like, how many friends do you have? Yeah. But yeah, so, and through that I was just, it was so fun doing that. And I grew up here in South Central, and there's this projects in South Central, they call it the Pueblo projects, which a lot of my friends growing up lived in it. I didn't grow up in those projects, but I grew up close in proximity to them, and a lot of my friends from like my punk rock days lived there, and we were all part of this like punk gang called Aborto Social. Shout out Aborto Social. And there was this crew called RL, who's still big Los Angeles graffiti crew, and they controlled that yard. So it was like the RL yard, but it was like one of the only train yards in South Central, and it's right behind the Pueblo projects. And I spent so much time there with my friend Crab from RL as well. And so a lot of my time was just spent there. And like, I basically lived there for like 2-3 years of just hanging out with my friends there. And it was like a safe zone, and it was kind of like a playground. You know, it was so magical because it was just right behind my friends' houses. It was like this back alley with all the projects, and the back alley fence led right behind the train yard, and that train yard had fresh trains every single day, and it was like I was in heaven. Freights? Yeah, freights. Oh, cool. Yeah, it was a freight yard. Yeah, and I was in heaven. Like, me and my friends would just spend so much time at the Pueblo projects, and a lot of good stuff happened through that, and a lot of bad stuff happened to that. You know, I remember getting jumped by the Oriental Bloods who lived there through like some beef that happened with my friends, and like it was a horrible situation where like I almost got shot and killed, and I got beaten to death almost. You know, like my face was so fucked up, my brother's face was fucked, like all my friends' face was fucked. Like we were in deep shit, and I was almost gonna die. There was like a gun pointed at my head. I remember one of my friends who passed away recently, he rode B-Head from RL. He saved my life. He like did the most and like yelled to the top of his lungs so this guy wouldn't kill me. But it was just this whole situation that happened, and I remember escaping with my life and just like thinking, I was like 18 at that point, and just thinking to myself like, fuck, like I need to like stop being around this kind of stuff, you know, like if I could continue this lifestyle, like I'm definitely gonna die. And then
that was through just you went there to paint, and that happened.
Yeah, I went there. It was so funny. It was like my friend's birthday. I'll tell you the story. It was my friend's birthday, and we were celebrating his birthday, and there was another birthday happening next door. And the way the projects there work is like building, courtyard, building, courtyard, building, courtyard. And my friend's building was here, and they were celebrating in this courtyard. And there was another building here, and the Oriental Bloods were celebrating somebody's birthday. And I went there, gave my friend his present. We were hanging out, and I see one of my friends. I'm not gonna mention any names, but I see one of my friends, and he's like, "Yo, like I brought some paint." He's like, "Oh, I brought some paint too. You want to go paint?" And I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, so excited. So I hopped the fence over to enter the train yard. And as soon as we're walking over to the trains, like I hear bickering. of these two people, and I'm like, wait, I have to go back. Like, I'm always someone to protect my friends and to see if everything is okay. So I couldn't just go paint with like hearing this in the background. And so I like peek my head over to the fence, and I see my friend talking to this gang member, but they weren't really talking. They were arguing and they were fighting. Apparently they had fought before and they just ran into each other, so they were fighting. And right next to my friend was my cousin, and my cousin is like, this guy got the biggest balls in the world. You know, this guy's ruthless vato, and he doesn't give a fuck. He'll like fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. And he was always like a troublemaker growing up. And so I see my cousin, I'm like, oh fuck, well I can't definitely leave now. So I'm like looking over, and at some point my friend claims that this guy is not putting any work for his gang, for his crew, whatever. And he leaves for a quick second and comes back with literally 30 gang members. Like literally a fucking swarm of gang members. And the leader of the gang states out like, hey, who said that my boy's not putting any work, you know? They point fingers, like literally 30 people start beating the fuck out of my friend. And my cousin's right next to it. So my cousin's there fucking fighting this stuff. So I'm like, fuck, dude, like, just want to go paint, you know? I don't even want to be part of this stuff. Put my backpack down, hop over the fence, and by the time I finish hopping over the fence, my cousin's on the floor getting beaten by 3 people. One of them had like the top of a grill he was beating the fuck out of him, like the top of his head. I remember seeing the word OB on top of the grill for Oriental blood, just beating the fuck out of him. So I run and I drop kick the guy who's beating the fuck out of my cousin. So now I extend up and there's like 3 guys on me. I'm getting beat up. They're fucking me up. I'm like trying to hold my own, trying to fight. But these guys I was like 18 at this point, maybe 17. And these guys were like 30 years old, you know? They're like grown adults, you know? And they're like, you're getting beat the fuck up. And I'm like backing up and I'm trying to fight, but I'm still getting beat up. And I see my brother from the distance and he notices that we're getting into a fight. So he comes after me and starts running, and like a Impala pulls up and tries to run over my brother. Some guy gets out of the car and starts beating the fuck out of my brother. So my brother's getting beat up here. My cousin's on the floor getting beat up. My friend who started the fight is pinned down to the wall, getting destroyed. And I'm backing up, getting beat, you know? And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, we're gonna fucking die. And I decided to like walk away. But when I'm walking away, this guy kicks me from the back and I hit myself in the rear, in the mirror of one of the cars that was there. I start bleeding from my head and I look around. I'm on the ground. I turn around and there's a gun pointed in my head. And I'm like, fuck, dude. Just like that moment was so fucking intense. I was like, shit, dude, that's it. Like, I fucked up. And then that's when my friend B-Head comes out of his house screaming at the top of his lungs, like, they're just kids. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And the gang member just like slowly like puts the gun away. But I was like this close to getting murdered, you know? And I remember after that, like we had to come up with a story to tell my mom. And we said we went to a hardcore show that we started dancing, we got beat up. But after that, I had like a whole realization about like where I needed to be and why I was there in those moments. And so that summer I started school in Santa Monica, and slowly I started like not hanging out with the same people anymore. You know, I was like, you know, distancing myself, and I was like trying to do good at school and like dedicating all my time of going to school. And then some of my friends, you know, would like shit talk and like, you know, call me names, whitewashed, whatever, hipster, whatever, you know, every fucking name. And I didn't really care, because I was just like, yo, I don't want to be a part of that. And like slowly, like most of my friends that I would hang out with were either, you know, dead, locked up in jail, addicted to drugs, baby mama at an early age, you know, you name it, like everything in the book, you know. And I was like, well, if I didn't stop, for sure, like I was gonna go right there, you know?
Yeah. I guess the element of danger that you came up in, how do you think that affected you? How do you think that formed your mind into what it is now, or what you thought life was then when there's actual danger? There's a lot of gang violence. There's a lot of people
Hmm.
with guns. There's a lot of anger and frustration, and there's just many wars happening pretty much at every corner,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
a lot of just anger and violence, and people dying notoriously at a young age all over the place. What do you think that did?
I think it made me just appreciate my life a little bit more, you know, and not just a little bit more, a lot more. And then I realized that because of my environment, like I was never one to be violent, you know, one to start a fight or anything like that. But I was never a bitch. So like every time those things happen, like by default, like I was there because of my cousin or my brother or my friends, and like all my friends would get into trouble, and like we were like punk rockers living in areas where it was primarily gangsters, you know. So like there was a lot of beef between the tag bangers, and you know, being a punk rocker and doing graffiti wasn't cool then, you know. It was kind of like, what the fuck you, like what the fuck you doing, fuck taggers, fuck you guys. And so there was a lot of fights, and they weren't because of me, you know, they were because of either my friends or the people around me. And I never wanted to be, you know, a part of that. I never got a kick out of being violent, you know, but by default I was violent though, you know. And there was moments where I did get a kick out of jumping somebody or fighting somebody or being a part of this bigger team that had power, you know. And but then realizing that, you know, like that's not going to help you out in life, and that's not going to pay your bills for sure. And so when I started going to school, I started and meeting different people of different calibers and different perspectives and minds. Then I started to realize, like, oh shit, like not everyone's like this, you know. Not everyone's fucked up in the head, you know. Not everyone's violent. And then I realized how like violent and destructive I was, because like some of my friends would tell me, they'd be like, damn dude, like when I was like 18 or 19, they'd be like, damn dude, you're really destructive, or like you're really violent. And I didn't realize it, you know, because I was around that so much. And then slowly started to calm down and be more gentle and more soft and more understanding. And but it took for me to get out of the hood to understand all that, you know, to kind of be like, oh shit, that's not how everybody acts, you know. And I think like I've learned a certain skill, almost like a chameleon like skill, where I could act accordingly to where I am. You know, if I'm with friends, I'm not going to be talking to them a certain way. When I'm with these people, I'm not going to be, you know, bringing out the hood side of me, you know. So like learning that kind of way of living was really important. And it wasn't until like 2 years after I attended community college that I kind of wanted to be an artist, because I was at first I was going for business, international business and language. I was learning Chinese and I was learning international business and like all that kind of stuff. I'm totally for, and I was always drawn to business, so that's what I was kind of leaning at. But I remember that year, like I took a business class, a Chinese class, an economics class, and I took an art class just for an elective, you know, just to do it. And I remember like I failed my Chinese class. I've got a D in my economics class and I got a C in my business class. But in my art class, I was like flying colors, you know, did so well. And my professors were really surprised and kind of intrigued with the kind of art that I was making and the skill level that I was showing. And they're kind of the ones that showed interest in my work and were like, hey, you need to do this. And so ever since then, I was like, you know what? Like, I think maybe they're right. But it took a long time for me to convince my family that I could do it, you know?
Yeah, because at first they were kind of not believing in a career in art. They were kind of thinking that because that's not necessarily a traditional career where you find success in, it's unstable.
Mm-hmm.
How was that with maybe convincing your family that it is stable or it is at least possible,
Mm-hmm.
and going through with it anyways, knowing that maybe it's not necessarily what they wanted at first?
Yeah. It took a long time, and the way, even with like being visually and like just by first glance being good at it. They're like, okay, like we get it, like you're good at drawing, you're good at painting, you're good at this art thing, but like how are you gonna make any money? You know, like are you selling your paintings? Like what, are you sold your painting for $100? Like cool, like whatever, like but how are you gonna make real money? And it was difficult. And even after I graduated from UC Berkeley with my undergrad with an art degree, like they were still like, good job, mijo, like this is your, we're really proud of you, but like what are you gonna do with this? You know, so it took a while for even me to figure out what I wanted to do with it and how I could survive all of that. Because as you know, like selling paintings and just being an artist is so difficult, you know, and there's so many different things that you have to do to sustain yourself with being an artist, you know. And I tried every avenue, and I think through that I opened up my skill set of being a designer, being a photographer if I need to, being a production assistant, learning scenic painting, being a fine art artist, learning sculpture, you know, every creative and all and everything through curating and running a business and how to deal with museums and all that stuff. Like I kind of like picked it up just by jumping the gun and just being there and putting myself in the situations. But it took a while, and I've done everything, man, from being a commissioned artist to having Patreons to doing design work to creating designs for shoe brands, for women's shoes brands, to working at Disneyland as a scenic painter, you know, teaching, like every career, you know, being a gallerist, being an art dealer, like I've tried it all, you know. And one thing that I kind of felt more fulfilled by was always, besides like making my own art, obviously, is putting together exhibitions and curating exhibitions and creating events for the community. That's always something that I was so excited about, you know, that it made me feel good. And it made me feel good because I saw how it made others feel. And I don't know, there's some sense of like of support and community when I do that. And like I've always wanted that for myself. So helping others makes me feel, you know, okay about my life, you know. And I just want to continue doing that, like helping out my friends in whichever capacity I can. And I'm always one not to say no to my friends. Like if they need help with anything, my friends know that I'm there to help them. You know, I'll drop painting to do this kind of, to help them out with whatever, you know.
Yeah. So what was the process like of actually making a living off of art as something that's known to be difficult to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the term starving artist, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And graduating from school and just like, where do you go from there?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do from there? And I guess there's no real guideline, but
Yeah,
how did you
really
do it?
Yeah, so I think there's, I don't know if like the question goes straight to like how do you survive as a painter, just like being a fine art painter and doing that, or being an artist in general as a whole, you know, because like I was saying earlier, there's so many different avenues of being creative and being able to make a living out of being creative. But for me, you know, I never felt fulfilled when I was working for somebody. Like when I was a painter at Disneyland, like I was making good money and I was living like a dream job. You know, you're painting every day, you're doing creative things, you're painting signs, you're painting murals, you're creating worlds, you're helping out this bigger community enjoy this bigger thing that you're creating. And when I was working there, I got to work on the Star Wars campus, the Star Wars Avengers ride that was there, and I got to do the Spider-Man ride that was there, and I got to paint the Millennium Falcon and like really be hands-on with like really special projects. And but at the end of the day, like I didn't feel fulfilled.
It wasn't your passion.
I mean, painting's my passion, but it wasn't. And I was definitely passionate about creating this stuff and making the stuff look as best as it could. But working for somebody else isn't my passion.
Yeah.
You know, making somebody else millions of dollars while you're making chump change isn't my passion, you know? And so, but that's just for me, you know? Other people could live happily doing that, you know. And I know people who happily do that, who don't have the mental capacity to think for themselves or to, you know, live on the edge and fight every day for what you want to do. And, you know, some people love the being comfortable and the stability of just having a weekly paycheck and having a job every single day and not having to worry about what your paycheck's going to look like every week, you know. And there's some, I mean, I don't blame them, you know. Sometimes I'm like, man, why did I give that up? Like, you know, but I know why I gave it up, because, you know, I have bigger dreams. And so it took a long time for me to start actually making real money for my art. You know, it wasn't from, you know, it was kind of gradual. It wasn't like from one day to the next I'm selling $50,000-$60,000 paintings. You know, it was just, you know, slowly building it up. And I like to give a lot of credit to my studio, TLALOC Studios. So I opened up TLALOC Studios in 2020, and right before that, like, I wasn't selling paintings at all. You know, I was like barely maybe selling one painting a year, if that, you know, and it was very difficult for even to sell that painting. But that didn't stop me from creating and from making anything I wanted to do. I didn't kind of let that get in the way of my creative activity. And so it wasn't until I opened up TLALOC Studios where I think we did it in a moment in time, because it was right after the pandemic, when, like, during the pandemic, I started this idea, but we had closed doors. We didn't really open up the space to the public, and we were creating in silence. And when we were allowed to open the doors up for the public again, we were amongst one of the few art spaces that did it. But we did it in a very special way, where it wasn't very, you know, you didn't have to put your hands behind your back. It wasn't strict, you know. It was very openly. It wasn't what you would see like in museums or like white room or blue chip galleries. You know, it was more about the community and more about like real people. You know, it made you feel welcomed. You know, you didn't get in here and be like, oh, I got a weird eye from the receptionist. You know, like, sorry. And because of that, people really enjoyed the space. And when we opened up our studios, like, all the studios were open. We had an exhibition happening, and I displayed all the artists who were working out of here. And through that very first day that we opened, like, there were so many opportunities that happened, and we were working in silence for a year and a half. And so we had a lot of work to show. And when we opened up this space, like, all these gallerists and curators and different galleries started approaching us and be like, hey, we want to show you. And it just kind of happened that way, where it was like, oh fuck, we're getting shown at this gallery. No, we're getting shown at this gallery. And like, oh, now we're getting placed in the same context as these other artists. Like, and then when I started curating exhibits here more oftenly, people got the gist of that we were doing this for love. You know, we were doing it for the community. It wasn't a money grab scheme. You know, it was like, we genuinely like love art, and we love our friends and community, and we're doing this for our friends. And the community around us saw that, and they wanted a piece of it. And so a lot of collectors and a lot of museums and galleries started to come through our doors, and, you know, we started to work with them, and it became really kind of organic in that way. And everyone who worked out of here got an opportunity or worked on a different project because of this space. You know, the space gave us different avenues to go, you know, and different opportunities for us to take, you know. And it was really special. And at some point, like, I thought I was dreaming. I was like, wait, what? Like, who came through this door? Like, who's buying what? Like, oh man, this is so cool. And it happened in such like a fast rate, you know, where it was it almost felt like it did happen overnight, but it surely did it. You know, we put in so much work.
So it started happening when you opened up the studio.
It did. Like, before that, like, I wasn't really getting invited to be part of exhibitions. I was, but like friends exhibitions, you know. And it wasn't until I opened up a space where I started putting my own exhibitions that people started recognizing it and admiring it. And that's like how I met a lot of the people that I work with now. That's how I met Roger, you know. That's how I met a lot of different museums, was through the space, and through the space, getting good publication and other people catching wind of it, and then coming for themselves and experiencing the magic of TLALOC. Because when you come to these exhibits, dude, it's the best feeling, man. You have the whole communities here. I'm showing some of the favorite artists in Los Angeles, even not in Los Angeles, around the States, and sometimes even out of the country. And it feels so magical to be here. And a lot of people have met, you know, their future lovers here. They've met their future collaborators here. They've, you know, they made best friends with people that, you know, that they only knew on Instagram or social media. And it's really a place to come and celebrate each other, you know. And it just feels so authentic, and it does come genuinely from a really authentic place, and the community could feel that. So when we have these exhibitions, like, people are hyped, dude. People are like, fuck yeah, it's gonna happen. We don't have them too often because we work out of this space and we do a lot of stuff here, but when we do, I put a lot of my energy to it.
So when you started it, you didn't really have an idea of how it's gonna play out. You didn't have an idea that it was going to happen the way it happened.
Oh,
you
no.
just wanted to do something, I guess, for your community and for your passion and for something that you like to do. Mm-hmm. And then it all popped off.
Yeah, exactly. It just kind of happened. When I first got the lease to the space, I remember I came here at midnight by myself, and like I started visualizing like the things that could be here and things that happen. I just remember getting like a shock of like adrenaline and creativity, inspiration from me walking through the space empty and just visualizing the things that I could do. And I got so like giggity thinking about like the potentials of the space, and like I like thought to myself, like, wait, I could do whatever the hell I want here. Like, fuck, that's so cool. Like, I have this space where I could do these things without people telling me what to do. Like, I could just do it. And I just got so happy, you know, and then slowly started happening, and has grown bigger than myself, has grown bigger, and people rely on this space, you know, to progress their art careers. Yeah. And a lot of people have gotten discovered here through this space. I've given a lot of people different shows and exhibitions because of this space. A lot of different galleries to look at me, to give them like a new artist, because like I like to, you know, have my feet in the ground and see who's making things, you know. And if you're making something cool in Los Angeles, or if you're just starting out, or I like to see everyone's art, you know. Every time I meet anybody, my first question to them is, are you an artist? And if you are, like, can I see your work? You know, I love looking at work. I love looking at art. I love showing people's work for the first time. And I love showing friends that are established too. And I kind of asked them to help me out in that way too, to kind of get more eyes on the space.
Well, I find that a lot of people start things, if what they have inside of them is passion, they're actually hyped on what they're doing, and they might not have a plan for how they're going to do it. They're just going to start. And then you see some crazy magical shit go down of like success stories. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's a common thread in that I've noticed talking to people. Like, I talk to a lot of people doing this thing, and a lot of people have amazing stories of like they didn't really know what they were doing. They were relatively unhappy with what their situation is. Then they're like, yo, fuck this, I'm gonna do it myself right now. And then they just go and do it with the means that they have and with the people who are around them already organically, essentially their community. Mm-hmm. And then like somehow it works, and I'm like, how does that even seem real, dude?
It doesn't seem real at all.
I mean, that's kind of what happened with this thing too. It's mm-hmm. like we started it at the same time, more or less, and like it just doesn't seem real, but it is real. And it's also, it's hard work, but it's also like, since you're working on something you actually love, it doesn't feel exactly the same. Like you mm-hmm. could stay up all night doing something and you'll feel satisfied in a way because it was for your fucking dream, dude. You know mm-hmm, what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you'll feel hyped that you did it. You won't feel like,
oh yeah, exhausted or
and, or
tired.
like if you do feel exhausted, it'll be like a good exhausted. It's not like
Yeah,
can't take this life anymore.
no way.
Looking back, I've read about the Disney World situation and how it was like not what you wanted, and you were commuting there and doing this whole thing, and looking at your path so far, and then you get to here. What do you think about that? Like, just remembering, I guess, the past, and from graffiti to your upbringing to Disney World to now this.
I think I like we were talking from the beginning. Like I look at everything as positive and essential to my story. And if it wasn't for the time working at Disney, like I wouldn't come up with different ideas and subjects, like I learned so much through working out of there, like because I started working with guys who had like 50 years in the game of scenic painting. So there's so many like secrets and like shortcuts to making different objects and different lines and different things that I was so blown away. So like I was there for like 4 years, and it's almost like I went to this school of scenic painting and problem solving and storytelling.
Scenic painters can do a lot.
Everything,
it's
dude.
Fucking insane. Like
scenic painters
the
are the
things that
best.
they don't even. It doesn't even. It won't even look like. It'll look like a piece of marble.
Mm-hmm,
it's like, oh yeah, that's a painting, and I'm like, what, dude? And they have techniques.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
I've met one scenic painter in my life. Shout out to Ian, and he showed me mad shit, and I was like, you made this, bro?
Dude,
how the fuck did you make this? And he's like, oh, that's simple. You just do blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, yeah.
No, yeah, like all that stuff is so cool to learn, and even now when I meet scenic painters, like I just nerd out so much on like tools, techniques, like speed, like different ways of storytelling, and through working there, because the first big job that I took working at Disney was creating the Star Wars world, and that Star Wars world had so many like antique finishes and different rust areas and marks where things were aged and rusted and old and ancient, so I started looking at my landscape differently. Like I started looking at Los Angeles way differently and being like, oh, look at that pole. Like that pole's got this like mark from this car who passed by, and it's got these rust from the dogs pissing on this area like fucking all the time, and we got these like indents from that and these scratches and like all those stuff. Like I would pay attention to like really closely, and that kind of went into my paintings. Like I like all this like rusted surfaces, like it's all fake rust, it's all it's all scenic ways of approaching painting, and through all that I gained so much experience and like storytelling, and so I now kind of put that into my paintings, and I guarantee you that my paintings wouldn't look the way they look like if it wasn't for my experience working at Disney. Yeah, it
shows you a lot of techniques.
Yeah, techniques, and not just techniques. Like I already had like the work ethic going into. This is why kind of I succeeded a lot at working at Disney, and why I kind of like moved up on the Disney ladder really quickly. It was because of my work ethic, but the people that work there just kind of like reinforce that in you, and you just like, it's just so cool like to share the work ethic with other people, like other people that love to work, that just work mad hours and like without any breaks, and like I kind of romanticize working long hours. And there's something that I don't know, there's something in me when I talk to people that work long hours that I just like, I get really soft inside, and I'm like, fuck. Like there's this guy at my local 7-Eleven who works at 3 different convenience stores, and I'll go into the store and he'd be like, what's up, man? You're just getting out of work? I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna get this drink and go back to work. He's like, yeah, I'm on my 19th shift, 19th hour shift. I'm like, dude, that's so sick. I'm just like, and my girlfriend's like, that's not cool, man. Capitalism isn't cool. Like,
that's the argument.
Like people shouldn't be working this tough, this hard, that man should be resting right now. And I'm like, yeah, but there's something so cool about like working long hours. Like I love this shit. Like this is awesome. But I mean, there's both the ways,
Yeah, I mean, dude, there's people like, I know a lot, like coming from Ecuador, like I know a lot of South Americans who immigrated here, especially Ecuadorians. I know a lot of Ecuadorians who immigrate here, and like their work ethic is a different type of thing, man. It's a different type of thing.
It's a superpower, dude.
It's a superpower, and
It's insane.
like they don't complain and they don't feel depressed and they
Nope.
don't feel sad that
No.
they're doing it.
No
and
way.
they're not like bitching about nothing.
No, dude.
They're happy. They're
Yeah.
genuinely happy that they get to do this.
Get to work.
And that's that. And I'm like, you know, I have some of that inside of me, but I'm not exactly like that. Like I was still born here in America and I still have that part of me as well. But I still have that inside of me, but not like them, because it's different when you come here from over there. You see things differently. You see a real opportunity. You see what you could go back to. You see like you really feel all of these things more than I think that myself being first generation here, I think I still feel it, but not like how, like, let's say my mom and dad feel it. And I see that in their work ethic. It's fucking crazy, dude. And like when I lived in Queens and I would commute every morning when I'd be going to school, like I lived like I told you, like 2-3 hours away from my school, whatever. So like I would wake up at 5 a.m. to go to school. The only people I saw in that shit were like essentially South American construction workers, but no one's angry, no one's sad, and no one's depressed. And I think that in our society now, a lot of people get depressed if they have to work a lot. A lot of people get depressed with pretty much amazing lives. And I'm not saying that depression's fake, but because they dead feel, the depression. But I'm like, yo, why my grandma? I'd be talking about this. I'm like, why my grandma didn't feel a depression? Why my mom didn't feel depression when their lives
there was no time
in mad ways, kind of objectively worse. The thing where it's not worse is they have a way stronger community and family situation. They have like, when you come home, doesn't matter if there's 10 people at home, 35 people at home, 2 people at home, like you have a real community at home that like, I think that shields you, you know what I'm saying? Like from the rest, and then you don't even care. Maybe you're not, I don't know what it is, but I've thought about this shit and I'm like, why don't they feel depressed ever? Why don't they feel overworked? Maybe they do feel overworked. Some of them. I can't speak for everybody. But, you know, like it's a different mentality, the way that they approach it. It's a blessing to work rather than a fuck me, I want to do something else.
No, I feel that.
And it's amazing, man, that you've been able to, that you're, you know, doing what you're doing, because you know, this is like my first time really talking to you, but I can get a sense of where you come from and where your family comes from, and I know what it means to be like, damn, I do this. This is what I do.
It's crazy. It's a blessing, dude.
Like I might be the first fucking person in my entire family, and everybody that they know also, not even just my family, like whoever the hell they know.
Yeah, I know.
Ever to do some shit like this.
It feels crazy, dude.
And it's like, what are the odds that this would happen? Probably like seemingly close to zero, but then it happened.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. And then my parents like kind of trip out on me all the time, you know? They're just kind of like, who are you, dude?
Yeah.
Like, but in a good way, you know? Like, dude, what the hell? Like, well, they'll see me and like do things, and like, and sometimes I have to like invite my family to see firsthand, to kind of witness it, to kind of give them an actual feeling of how it's like. I had a show that actually Roger put together at the Saatchi Gallery in London, and it was like a big show. It was like a big Beyond the Street show, and I took my father. It was like the first time he's kind of ever left the country.
Oh, so sick,
dude. He was tripping out, dude, and we were like hanging out with like celebrities and like art celebrities and musicians, and at some point like we were talking to Eric Clapton, and my dad loves Eric Clapton, so he was like, dude, that's fucking Eric Clapton. Like that, like he was just tripping out on the culture shock and like what I was doing and how I like carried myself in these situations, and it was a mind fuck to him, you know. But like sometimes I have to do these things so my dad can understand, like, hey, we're doing okay, you know, like don't worry, you know, because otherwise these things that I'm like just smoking weed and painting, you know?
yeah, that's awesome that they know about it though, and that they're hyped.
Oh, they're super hyped on TLALOC Studios too. They come and support every show. They come here, they post up. They're like, my dad loves art too, so he'll like critique everything. So does my mom, and it's always interesting hearing their points of view, you know.
Yeah, Um, in terms of using this space as a place to uplift your community, and also, you were saying that like one of your concerns is that your art may not be affordable for your community. So you're trying to do more things that are affordable for your community. And I know you were like doing murals and stuff like that for that reason. Tell me a little bit about that. What's it like seeing, because it is good if the prices go up. It is good because that's how you make your living and that's how you stay alive. So that's good. But then at the same time, yeah, it becomes inaccessible to a whole bunch of people. So what do you do to counteract that, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so there's different ways that I do to counteract that. And I mean, one of the things just right off the back is like opening my studio space for the community. It's like when I do have these open studios and these exhibitions, and like people get to come and experience this, and maybe they can't take the actual pieces home, but like they could come and experience it. And I do have things like prints and like t-shirts and like things like that are more accessible, that I'm actually going to start making more. Like last year I kind of didn't do it so much because I was like my head was in a different space. But starting at the beginning of next year, 2025, I'm going to be dishing out a lot of affordable objects for the community and for people that want to support, and I think that's one way of like giving back and making things that are more affordable. But aside from that, like I really want to start pushing not just like my own art, but like curating different mural projects around my neighborhood, not necessarily with my art as well, because I don't want it to be about like me. It's more about what's happening around me and how that reinforces my own language. So I want to start inviting more of my friends and more spaces to start hosting these mural festivals, around our neighborhoods, because it's really important for the community. Because I remember growing up and like having my favorite mural around like Los Angeles and looking at that every time I drove by, and being a really powerful source of inspiration to be creative, And so I think that needs to happen. And with the Olympics coming, I don't want there to be shitty ass murals all around my neighborhood. And
The Olympics is going to be held in LA.
Yeah, in 2028.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So, but everyone's already moving for
Starting
that.
now,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, it's been starting,
Yeah.
And like I don't want that time to come and have like a shitty mural from someone who's not from the community, or some, something that's horrible that the city thinks is cool, So
Yeah.
I really want to be able to, and I'm trying to make my connections now and pitch my proposals to the city to start creating murals for 2028, for murals for the Olympics that actually matter, that actually invite the community to come out and actually invite people from the actual community to create things for us, not outsiders to come in and make a quick profit or get fame off these situations. So that's one thing that I've been thinking a lot about, is these 2028 Olympics.
How do you go about making murals any differently, or deciding what mural is going to go up, or anything like that differently than curating a show or doing like a canvas or doing a piece like that that's smaller scale?
Yeah, well, like I guess like there's a lot of it's very bureaucratic, if you're going to be working with the city. So it's more, you have to kind of, the images have to get approved. When you're making your own stuff, there's no approval. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Same with like my exhibitions and my curatorial experiences, is like I do whatever I want, and like I don't care if it's not academic or if it's not like telling this very specific story that you want. It's what I want. But when working with the city, it's much more different. It has to get approved. Like everything has to have a purpose and meaning and why it's there. Like why are you painting that, or how does that reflect the immediate community, or how does it reflect the building across it, or like
They're thinking about all that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very bureaucratic and in that sense, and so it's more difficult to work with, because and that's why they're starting already, because so many different things have to get approved, in order for that to happen. And so hopefully we'll be able to make a difference this time around.
What kind of stuff do they want up? Does the city want a specific type of thing up? Is there things that are a no-go?
I don't really know. I don't know how to answer that question too well, but in the past, there's been a lot of stuff that's that evokes a sense of community, that has to do with the people around. So I'm guessing they want things to uplift, you know, the community, which makes sense,
Yeah.
But sometimes maybe they might choose the wrong artist or somebody who's not from here, or they might choose somebody based on politics, like,
Mhm.
oh, that person's has a lot of money or that person's very famous, so we're not going to give Joe Schmo the opportunity. We're going to give this person to help out their art career and for it to be easily, publicated, or the PR team makes it easier on them to write papers on it,
Mhm.
because so and so who's famous did this mural as opposed to our local artist down the street. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it starts becoming about politics, more of like who you know and who they know, and who they want to bring up. Because obviously, if somebody gets like the best spot here in Los Angeles to make a mural, now they're gonna get fame. Maybe their paintings start increasing in value. So it's all politics involved
Yeah.
in that.
There's a whole world.
Yeah, who's got the money behind it? Who's involved in it? Who says what? Whose investments are on the line?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think all that has to play a role.
Yeah. How does your I got two questions. How does
Yeah.
your background coming up writing graffiti affect the way that you maneuver and the way that you do these things and your work? And two is, how did you even get into graffiti? Were you just seeing it on the street? Were your friends doing it? Like the aspect of style writing and learning that culture and learning the traditions behind it and all that stuff. How did you learn that stuff and how did you get into it?
hmm We'll start with the first question. I think now, like, as a Latino, Chicano, Mexicano, indigenous person, like, now, like, overall, like, it's starting to become very, very popular to be brown. So I think now we start having this upper hand um on that situation. And at first, obviously, I just had a conversation with Chaz Borges, who is the godfather of graffiti, and we were talking, and it took a long time for his art to get accepted into any museum or any art gallery. Even like his local peers that didn't think that his art was considered, of higher value. They thought that his art was considered, you know, lower than them. It wasn't as prestigious. It wasn't academic. It was for the barrio. It was gang graffiti. It was, it was seen lower than what you think would fine art would be. But him staying consistent, and I think the evolution of what Chicano means, or what being a Mexicano in Los Angeles means, started to become more relevant and a little bit more cool, and through fashion and fine art and movies and music and all that stuff is starting to become more relevant, and now people want that stuff. Now these bigger companies like Nike and Adidas and whoever, like, are now, seeing that and want to work more with Latino artists. And graffiti is such a big genre here in Los Angeles. Even not in Los Angeles, like, now it's starting to become more worldwide, that it's now being accepted. And even like all the shows that like Roger puts together and things like that, or even stuff that like Jeffrey Deitch has put together, like, has a big sense of graffiti and post graffiti in the work. And even like the show that I was a part of that just happened at Jeffrey Deitch, at the Edge of the Sun, there was a lot of, it was an all Latino show, but I want to say like almost like 40% of the people that were in that show came from a graffiti background, and that's saying something. That's saying something of how powerful that has become, how that tool has become in today's art world.
Yeah. I know of and know a lot of people who work in the creative space of whether it be fashion or art or skateboarding brands or design, and it's fucking actually insane how many of them are graffiti writers.
if not all of them.
No, straight up, like if not all of them.
Yeah, and it's
dudes like high up
for sure.
will be fucking graffiti writers. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy world
And
we're living
it
in.
makes sense because there's so much creativity that happens that people
Yeah.
think it's just like painting, destroying, vandalizing, whatever, like destruction. Sure, it's all those things, but there takes so much mental creativity, you know, to come up with these kind of compositions and letter forms and also it's also so much repetition and so much hard work and so much dedication happens with all this stuff, you know. Like once you're painting graffiti, like as you know, like you become absolutely possessed by this stuff. All your notebooks are covered in mark making and you can't stop writing, and you're not like addicted and possessed by this stuff. And like, sure, it's graffiti, but at the end of the day, it's also design. It's also typeface. It's also, you know, fine art. And there's different ways that you could approach that into all different types of creativity, you know. And I actually get really excited when like I meet creatives that, you know, that paint, you know, even a lot of like down to like art handlers. Like I know so many art handlers that are graffiti painters, you know, like in every scene, scenic painters that are graffiti painters. Like it's that genre of art making is so big here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too, because like the spirit of graffiti being something of like a sense of rebellion and a sense of creativity, and also like maybe going against the social norms. You're doing it your own way. You have your own traditions and you have your own way of viewing the world, and you live, you know, your own way. And I think it makes sense that those people then find jobs or careers or extracurricular activities that are outside of graffiti that are like something like art or something like clothing design or something like making their own business of some sort, because it's difficult for those people. They're not supposed to be working. They're very creative people. Like they're not supposed to be working at like a job that they have no interest in. Like they want to do it their way and they have mad ideas. For sure. So it makes perfect sense. But yeah, so how did you end up getting into it? Did you just notice it on the street and pick it up? Did you know someone who did it?
No, I actually drawing cartoons, you know, like, so drawing cartoons kind of, it gives you the same kind of motions of these letters, you know. A lot of these like ways of drawing cartoons are like literally the same thing as like making letters and stuff like that. And even with comic books and stuff like that, there's a lot of letters in comic books, you know, and a lot of like specific typefaces in comic books. So like looking at comic books and redrawing the word boom or like whatever automatopoeia sound, you know, into a letter form typeface expression, like was kind of the origin. And then I remember when I was 11 years old, my dad used to like get a bunch of garbage and a bunch of like boxes full of shit in boxes. I remember finding like this woodcraft marker there in the box, like this like 3-inch like woodcraft marker, up like a blue one. I remember finding it and then taking it to school one day, and I don't know why I found the urge, but to like just like, you know, tag on the restroom. And then I remember my friend, who's still my friend now, all the way from 6th grade, he had like a split streak marker. Yeah. And he had already had like prior experience, like cousins and brothers who were like into painting graffiti and doing that stuff. But I saw that, and he asked me if we could trade. He's like, "Oh, I like your marker. Like, do you want to trade for my marker?" And I thought his marker was a lot cooler than my marker, so I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude! Like, let's trade." And then I remember taking it home and just being like so excited about this tool, and going to like public restrooms and started writing. Like the first name that I wrote was Psycho. You know, I just thought that name was, you know, was cool. And yeah, I was only like 10 or 11 years old when I started doing that, and I just like never like didn't stop. And I just kind of like I literally in one day destroyed that whole marker. And the next day my friend's like, "Hey, actually I didn't like this marker. Do you mind if we trade back again?" I was like, "Dude, I killed it. Sorry." Like, it's gone. And he's like, "Oh, fuck it, whatever." But but yeah, so it started from there, and then again, like writing on my backpacks. Like I was always really good at mimicking things, so like because it started from cartoons and be able to do that. And so I started doing band logos on my friends' t-shirts. I started doing punk flyers and things like that. And again, that kind of painting on my skateboard, drawing on my deck on the grip tape, and like doing that kind of stuff. So it was all kind of together. And then it was until my friend Mario, my friend Crab, who has a studio here actually. He's been like my closest friend since I was 16. It wasn't until I started hanging out with him where it started to become more serious, like daily. And he kind of like gave me the ropes of how to, come up with your first throw up. And because there was a lot of tagging before that, just tagging and tagging. And it wasn't until I started hanging out with him that it was like start to become more, start to, progress faster in that sense, and then he knew all our friends from the projects and from the Pueblo yard. So when I started talking to him, like that's when I met those kind of friends and more of my punk rock friends, and through him and through my cousin start to explore more of that feeling. And yeah, it came naturally, just kind of like progressively came naturally of personal interests and things that I love to do. Like I never paid attention in school, but I was always drawing in school on my desk, on my notebook. So it just came naturally to be, attracted to that kind of art.
Yeah. So what's next? What do you have planned going in towards the future of the studio or personal work or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm just there's a couple stuff that's coming up. Like I was saying earlier, like I love curating. I love putting together events, like almost, if not more than like making my own art. There's something about bringing the community together and doing something with other people that really kind of gets me excited. Also, like when you work with other people, like things happen faster, so I love doing that because it takes a tribe to do things.
Yeah.
And so I love working close with my friends. And so the next thing I'm going to be doing in terms of my curatorial practice, I'm working with Little Big Man Gallery and Carlos Jaramillo, who's a photographer. He was born in Texas, lived in Miami, spent like 10 years in New York, and he's been here for the last like 4 years in Los Angeles. But he's an insane photographer. He's one of my favorite photographers. He always shoots all the stuff that I do. And we've collaborated in a lot of projects when he first moved to Los Angeles. And so I'm curating an exhibition of his photographs that are all shot in South Central. So he kind of realized the beauty of South Central when he started hanging out with me and started seeing things that are not just necessarily the gang and like drugs and all the bad stuff like in South Central, but actually the beauty of South Central, like the people who work here and like the people who actually form the community, the people from the panaderia, the tamale lady, the parks, the more wholesome aspects of South Central. And he's doing a fantastic job at photographing all these very special moments. And so we're putting together an exhibition next month on the 12th at Little Big Man Gallery that I'm curating. So there's one thing I'm doing. And then also going to be curating a bigger kind of art bazaar, print fair, like art market that I kind of want to talk to you about as well, that I'm going to be doing with Roger actually.
Oh, sick. Yeah,
we're doing this big art market, art fair, print fair, book fair, all together at once at the flagship store in La Brea at the Beyond the Streets Control Gallery flagship store. And that's going to happen February 1st.
Okay.
But that's going to bring together a lot of talented, sick ass artists from Los Angeles, from the States, from all over, from graffiti to fine art to sculpture to design to music to printmaking, photography, everything in between, magazines, you name it, So it's going to be a 2-day thing, Saturday and Sunday, full blast, going all in, maybe some performances, new drops, new items, 40 vendors, 40 artists,